Maverick News, the antivirus program for your mind. And now, the Freedom Reporters. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, how about now? We should have audio now, right? Okay, finally. All I had to do was just reset everything. Okay, we're back on. Welcome, ladies and gents, to the Maverick News Channel. Great to have everybody back, and I'm glad everybody can finally hear me. As I was saying, Gail Robertson will be joining us shortly to help walk us through this developing story on the Arrivecan app scandal. And yeah, I'm saying scandal. This could become a pivotal issue in the upcoming federal election in Canada. It's so bad, the development of this Arrivecan app, that the whole schmozzle, Laverne and Shirley, is so crazy. There was an auditor's report released, and they say they can't even figure out exactly how much was spent. We know it's at least $59.5 million for something that was supposed to cost originally a fraction of that, and they're not even sure how much it cost. So Gail will help walk us through that when she arrives here on the broadcast. Also, that shooting in Houston, Texas yesterday that we told you about, the Lakewood church shooting. The shooter has been identified, and the circumstances surrounding that, I think, will surprise some of you and maybe have others nodding their head going, yeah, figures. So we'll get into that. Plus, we'll try to bring you this video that I posted overnight, surveillance video of a church in Regina that was set on fire by an arsonist. And I know that that is going to ignite some controversy and some emotions. So stay with us. We'll come back on the other side. Gail will join us, and we'll start off with this latest scandal involving our Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, and the whole world is watching tonight. They're also watching Tucker Carlson, or they were, at the World Government Summit. So I'm going to raise some eyebrows tonight with that. We'll go there and find out what's going on with all of that. It's also a place where Klaus Schwab was speaking today. So we'll find out what Klaus Schwab is thinking as well. Let's bring Gail in, and we'll start with this story about the Arrivecan app. Hello.
Hello, how are you? Happy Monday and happy post Super Bowl and all that. I caught some of the coverage, and I always like to watch these big events from the perspective of, with curiosity and looking at how, between the ads and the halftime show, and it's interesting as a mass media event as well, and where people spend time.
Did you? What did you think of the Taylor? What is it? Travis Kelce, is that the guy's name? Yeah. And the love affair, the whole love story woven into the Super Bowl. It's all very American.
Yeah. Well, she's a big name. He's a big name, but I would say, what's interesting is the whole debate over whose name's bigger. But clearly, whether you're a football person or not, her. I did not know who Travis was before this, but it's one of those stories. Again, media loves to cover this because it's a pretty easy story to cover, right? And we're going to probably talk more about that. And this is my concern always. It's fine to do the low-hanging fruit stories, but we also need to balance that out with, more in-depth more serious stories and more what will impact people, because there's so many things around that story. And Taylor Swift is very popular with girls, but also what is the image she puts out, in terms of her performance and the standard that's set again, right? So yeah, there's many elements to that story as well. So
Yeah, and a little bit of politics thrown in there too,
oh yeah.
with Donald Trump saying, "Well, please don't endorse Joe Biden. Not after all the money I made for you." I was like, "What
Well,
are you talking about, man?"
and here's the thing that, there's a lot of rabbit holes to go down and conspiracies and whether, and, I find myself sometimes I'm like, how much is true and how much is, is not. And I saw someone, okay. So I also asked my son, his girlfriend, with the halftime show. I thought, now this is just from my entertainment background. I thought it was kind of, I said before I gave my comments, I asked them and they said kind of meh. And that's what I thought too. It was like, I don't know, wasn't anything that outstanding. What I thought was interesting though was the choice of who to sing the national anthem. Reba McEntire. That was like, I would say that was a very smart PR move on their part, because she's now in the room that I was in, which tend to be a little bit older, and everybody loved, and leaned a little more country, right? And they all love Reba McEntire. And I think she kind of is the person that she didn't mess around with it too much either. Like sometimes I hear anthems and I'm like, can you just sing it properly and in the right time frame?
Yeah, sorry, I just had some piece of audio playing in my ear from something. I don't know where it's coming from, but it's gone now. I'm not going crazy. I do have voices in my head, but I'm not going nuts. And you can't
there's
hear
a
them.
comment. There's a comment here, and I think, and I'm not to call it, but it says, hard-hitting journalism going on here. I think what is interesting is, while I wanted to address that, is that it is about, the context of what is journalism anymore, and where is our time spent, and what are the stories that get covered. And that's a really good point, because there was so much attention on that whole story. And while there's so many other things that are impacting people every day and impacting people in terms of, the economy and wars and it's an interesting time to be in. And I always say that's why I do spend time on X or Twitter, because that's where I do get a lot of my news. And there's certain people I follow, and I curate my feed, and I'm finding I just get a much broader perspective than I would in only listening to other platforms. And of course your show, Rick.
Oh, of course. Thank you. So on a more serious note, very serious for Justin Trudeau and the Liberals, is this Arrivecan. Some are calling it Arrive Scam. And it just keeps on getting worse for the ruling government.
Yeah. Well, this is not really a new story. This has been brewing for quite a while. And I think it's almost, there's no turning. Now that the auditor's report comes out, right, it's sort of now makes it less partisan, but it's been coming out. And, one of the issues I have of late is that so much now has become about partisan politics when it comes from media coverage. And that's where we get into that danger zone, because if this was a different government, we'd probably be seeing attacks would have started a lot earlier. And what I feel is lost sometimes in media coverage is that it's now being, stories are getting more attention based on which politician or which political party. And I really would like to see that removed from journalism. Now, having said that, the other issue is that have we moved into a different world when it comes to media, that now we may need to get our news from different sources. And now you have an opportunity to get, more right-leaning, more left-leaning. Like, we've lost that kind of more, what I would consider a more objective perspective. And that's probably why mainstream media is in trouble that it is now, because they've lost their way. And what happened next is there was other organizations, people willing to step up and give their views, and also tap into this new current, digital reality that we're in.
Okay. So let's focus on the main story here for a moment, and just kind of walk people through exactly what's going on. So we have the Auditor General's report, and I guess they have found that those that were involved in the contracting, development, the implementation of this Arrivecan app, which they wanted everybody to load onto their phones, the costs spiraled not just out of control, but into the stratosphere. We're looking at least $59.5 million more than previously estimated. Rather, more than, I think they were looking at 54 million or something, which even that seems like absurd.
Yeah.
But 59.5 million, and they're not even sure if they can track all of the money.
That's a guesstimate, apparently, according to an auditor, the auditor. And one thing I know about auditors, they usually will dig around and they're looking for, where is follow the money, right? They want to see the receipts. Like anybody that's been through an audit knows what that can be like. My concern too is that when you look at, what small businesses have to deal with, I work in manufacturing, and how, when they're living through an audit, it is a daunting process. So that this has come out, and that there's almost, and I don't know if it's just overwhelm that people now just go, oh, another scandal. Oh, well, when this is something that is beyond just, it went from, say, 80,000. Let's say, I was talking to someone about this earlier. So they went from 80,000 and it was maybe up to 300,000, and then it ballooned up to, say, 5 million, right? And you could say, okay, there was other costs, but how they got to two things. One is up to almost 60 million, and they're not even sure if that's even correct, because there's so much mismanagement of the numbers, and that no one is saying, and no one's questioning this. There's people questioning it, but in terms of, this being a call to action now's the time we need media coverage around this, saying, wait a minute, this, pushing hard on, questioning the government. And I think this is more than just Trudeau. There's other people around him. And I wonder if I could just read something that replied to the U.S. I had sent that to you just a little bit ago, Rick. And this is what I think is happening, is that it's much easier to target individual people, whether it's Biden, Trump, Trudeau, Polyev, right? Making it personalities. So I think it was a Republican senator wrote this on Twitter, says, this election should be about results, not personality. It should be about the future of our country, not a race to the bottom. Because if this general election becomes a debate about who can outlast the other 80-year-old politician, the American people will lose. And, I see this as, we need to apply this here in Canada too, in terms of, instead of it just being about Trudeau, as the media, what they really need to be looking at is asking questions of who was part of this. Because it's not one person that did this. This is a whole level of, different government departments, different ministers, that someone has to sign off on all of this. And then we have the other political parties that were wanting to shut down any type of investigation. So, instead of just making this an anti-conservative thing, this needs to be set aside all of the political parties and instead look at asking a lot of questions and who knew what and how decisions were made. And we saw just, I think, last week where one of the committees was shut down. I think one of the MPs that was on the committee read out something about bribes, and whoop, all of a sudden they came to halt, and the headline was they shut it down due to a scary report. What? Scary? What are we, in high school? That just seems such a juvenile comment, that it's a scary report. And then why don't we, this is where the media needs to demand that we get this information. So
yeah,
that's, as I've been tracking this,
let's listen to a little bit of this clip from the
Yes.
Auditor General.
Our audit of the Arrivecan application looked at how the Canada Border Services Agency, the Public Health Agency of Canada, and Public Services and Procurement Canada manage the procurement and development of the application, and whether they spent public funds in a way that delivered value for money. I will discuss our findings, but first, I have to say that I am deeply concerned by what this audit didn't find. We didn't find records to accurately show how much was spent on what, who did the work, or how and why contracting decisions were made. And that paper trail should have existed. Overall, this audit shows a glaring disregard for basic management and contracting practices throughout Arrivecan's development and implementation. Si les organisations
So there you have it.
Wow. And this is, I mean, it's almost, I mean, when I first heard this, because I thought, okay, outcome, like, is this, politicking? But this is an auditor. I mean, this is someone who is, their job is to step back, set aside politics, and look at what is happening in terms of the financial numbers. Yeah.
A glaring disregard. Whatever, a couple million here, 10 million there, whatever.
And if this was the only story that, you'd say, okay, this is a one-off, it's, we could, but you start connecting the dots. And, as someone who focuses a lot on curiosity and looking at, connecting the dots, asking a lot of questions, this is where I see we need much more focus on digging deeper. And thankfully, there are people doing that. And unfortunately, a lot of those people are either like retired journalists now gone, doing the work like what you're doing, what I'm doing, what some of the people I see on X or Twitter doing. And, we've talked about a few people that are on X that are digging deep. And even if they are getting information, passed along to them, they're at least sharing it in a forum that, people have been starting to ask questions as opposed to just sitting back and, sweeping under the rug. Because this to me says there's much more here that we don't know about. And this isn't just about, a competence and incompetence around tracking, right? Like, it's like, oh, okay, they missed a few, 100,000 here and there. This is a large amount of money that also went to companies that have there's no one at those addresses. They said they spent money in office equipment when they've shown photos now again of, some of these offices that clearly did not spend $300,000 on office equipment.
Yeah, it's pretty clear to me what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
I always try to be careful with my words when throwing anything that could be accusatory. I don't want to get sued, but come on.
Well, I think this is where it is important just to ask, like, show us the receipts. We're not saying, necessarily, okay, like if this is genuinely, a misunderstanding, or there's been like, oops.
Yeah, that's a big oops.
It's a big oops. But, this is where my work when it comes to public relations and when I work with people and individuals and even companies, and I've done this in the past where I've said, step in, own whatever. If something has happened, own it and take responsibility and fall on your sword, do whatever you need to do. But when things are not revealed or when things are hidden, there's a perception then that there's a problem, a big problem.
Yeah. And, I think that we are sort of seeing a pattern here as well, because you're getting all through the pandemic. There were other programs as well that had huge cost overruns. The companies
Mm-hmm.
that seemed to get the contracts were, kind of in-house and were close to certain politicians. So it's, to me, there's a pattern, and I can go back over time
Yeah.
and point to specific other incidents as well in previous elections, previous governments.
Yep.
It's a big problem within government. People sit there and say, well, what's the solution? Well, I've said for a long time that we need more transparency when it comes to financials. These politicians, I think that we're at a point where we pretty much need to see right inside their bank accounts. We need to know where every penny comes from and where every penny goes with anybody who's in an elected office.
Well, I like to see too, I didn't realize this about, the conflict of interest guidelines. And this is where all parties need to make some changes with some of that conflict of interest legislation so that, people that, whether it's a gift of, at a certain amount, you should have to declare a conflict. I mean, I've been on boards, and that's the one thing always, you declare a conflict of interest. That's your duty to do that. And,
yeah, and with politics, and when you're in charge, I think it makes it pretty easy to launder money because you can move funds around. You can have, donations coming in as political donations, and then there are major tax write-offs when it comes to making political donations, like substantial, like 70%, 80%. So it's a lucrative thing for some people to get involved in politics, right? Even to set up a political party and turn that into a job. Let's go to question period and listen to this exchange with Pierre Poilievre. And I don't think the Prime Minister was there.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. The Prime Minister could have followed our common sense plan to fix the budget, stop crime, and so on, but instead he decided to waste $60 million when Canadians can't afford food or rent. And this was a scandal, the Arrivecan app that we didn't even need, which falsely sent 10,000 people into quarantine and enriched Liberal cronies. Isn't it true that that app was not worth the cost, just like the Liberal government is not worth the cost? The Honourable Prime Minister. The Honourable Minister, rather. Mr. Speaker, we've read the Auditor General's report. We've accepted her recommendations. The only thing I agree with my colleague opposite on is that anyone responsible for managing taxpayer money must follow strict rules. The rules in this case were not followed. We accept the recommendations to make sure this never happens again. And Mr. Speaker, we will always remain responsible when it comes to taxpayer money. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. So he's going to punish those responsible for this scandal? It should start with the Prime Minister himself. He should have had the courage to stand and defend himself rather than hiding behind another. This was an app we didn't need. It forced 10,000 people into quarantine when they shouldn't have. It enriched contractors who did nothing. They did no work and simply offered members of the Liberal government whiskey. That's simply not worth the cost. Before we hear the answer, I just ask everyone to please.
Before we get any deeper into that, if we even do, I'm just interested in your reaction, Gail.
Well, that response that we won't, it's like, okay, we won't do it again. I mean, the other thing is we've heard this before, but I think, that's a typical question period, back and forth. But this is where, since I'm kind of commenting more from the media perspective, we have to get beyond just what's happening in question period and the questions going back and forth. Remember, the media should be, and I still believe media has a role as the fifth estate to ask questions, and whether, separate from whatever the Conservatives saying or the Liberals are saying, this is about why we need, more media to ask questions and, like I said, this isn't a one-off, and there needs to be some connecting of the dots of what's been happening, because this isn't the first time, right, that this has happened. They've, said, okay, we won't do it again, but the word responsibility, we need to take that seriously, and we need a government that takes that seriously. And whether it's, whatever government is ruling, and I was having this conversation recently with someone. I said, this isn't, from my perspective, this isn't some like, this is anti-liberal, right? This is the government that has, across multiple departments. And there's some things that are beyond just like the oops, that are very questionable, that need to be brought to light and discussed, and then figure out what next, right? What's the repercussion for this? I mean, we're watching the polls, but the other item of note here, and needs to also be looked at, is that the Liberals are supported, like Trudeau is supported by his cabinet, and then the broader members, and another political party is keeping this going. And I question even people I know that are, strong NDP supporters. Like, how do you continue to support that? What your party is keeping the current government. Like, there could be election right now, especially over this.
Yes. Oh yeah, this could easily trigger an election, because I think that Canadians and I think the entire House should lose confidence in the government at this point.
I think this is something that is very concerning, and again, only from the media perspective. And I spend a lot of time reading a lot of different media, following different media, listening to podcasts. Like, I invest a lot of time, so I don't only read headlines. I think, like you, Rick, we spend a lot of time looking and listening to a wide range of coverage. And the other concern I have of late too, when I see headlines that are so similar across all mainstream media, that gives some concern when it's so similar without anyone questioning. And this came up recently, even regarding the, I had posted a kind of a question on X about the Coots case, right? And out in Alberta. But my question was, why was there no discussion about the length of time that they were held in custody without bail? Now, I know that you can't give information from the bail hearing. I get that. But it's interesting that I did hear from someone in mainstream that explained that to me, but I said, no, I know that. My point was, why is there no coverage and questioning about the length of time being in custody without bail? Just asking the question. I'm not, whichever side you fall on, I would like to know what the why, and is this the first time this has happened? And we see so many people that get out on bail and go on to reoffend and do horrendous things. So I was puzzled by that, and I think that's the type of thing media needs to be asking questions, and casting a spotlight on the process, setting aside whether you think they're guilty, innocent, whatever they did. And that was my concern, is that we don't have enough of that curiosity around some of these cases.
Yeah. Well, the government money too, it just seems to flow in a very irresponsible way. Even, if you want to talk about media, just look at the money the government has funneled to the major media companies in this country, only to then have Bell Media, just in the past week, announced 4,800 layoffs, not just in television and radio, but across its entire company. But the result is that they are cutting many newscasts. They're eliminating the W5 investigative team, and selling off 45 radio stations that they say are not financially viable. How do you take all that extra money from the government and then turn around and behave like that? And then Trudeau stands up there and, in his drama teacher style, says that he's pretty pissed, but I'm finding that pretty tough to swallow.
I agree. And the other thing, and this is, I have great compassion for anybody losing jobs. I mean, it's a horrible place to be, right?
Yeah.
But, there have been many manufacturing jobs lost when they, shut down pipeline, when they, decide to say, stop a lot of the work in oil and gas. There's a lot of people that, would be out of work. So you have to look at everything through a lens that is a little bit more objective, and not only, a lot of media people are kind of speaking out saying, how horrible this is. But what about a lot of other people who have lost jobs? Like, there's sort of this narcissistic approach to.
Well, how does the government cough up millions and millions and millions of dollars without attaching conditions to it that ensure that this kind of thing doesn't happen? The company basically just took the money and ran.
Sadly, of late, I've seen checks flying around and a lot of money handed out. And I hear this a lot too. People, want to get grant money or government money. And I had Catherine Swift on my show, and she's with the, I think I mentioned this, Canadian, it's a manufacturing advocacy group. They take no government money. And, what she said, what really gets her upset, she said, is when she hears whether it's an Ontario ad or a Canada ad saying, brought to you by the government of Ontario. She says, no, this is me. We're paying for these things that they're out there saying, look what we've done. Look how much money. And I see MPs handing out money like as if it's them personally. And I think this is where we need more information for people to understand that money there's not some magic pot of money that, they can go to that's just replenished. This all comes full circle back to why we're in the spot we're in when it comes to inflation. And no one seems to be doing those types of stories to really say, hey, where's this money coming from? Now we're starting to see like the Canadian Taxpayers Federation and the Canadian independent business groups, but again, they're not getting much attention in media. They're not the ones usually being interviewed by mainstream, at least. And that's why I know I'm having some people on my show that are coming from some of those organizations, because again, I'm all about, we need to connect the dots back to the world I'm in, which is manufacturing as well.
Yeah, I mean, I just personally, this is just me, I have big issues with governments handing out money like that. I prefer tax incentives, things to sort of pull companies along that then sort of create competition and incentivize performance. And it also then opens it up to everyone who can then meet the conditions to qualify. But when you just write a check and then hand it to someone, you're picking winners, you're picking losers. This guy gets the money, that guy doesn't. This company wins, that company loses. These guys get cash up front with, and then they can just take money from over here that they would have spent, and they just put it over here instead. And then they take that government money. It just offsets things. It's unforeseen ramifications, unintended consequences.
Yes, unintended.
From
and,
this kind of action.
Like anything, I'm someone that believes there is a role for certain government programs, and there's also a role, like you said, for incentives. And I often relate things back to parenting, right? And one of the things that, I always encourage with my son too was like, that he had to have, if he was we were going to buy, especially an electronic thing, he had to put in some money. I would put in some money. He had to like work towards it. And even when he was little, I ought to tell this story, when he got $5 and we went to the dollar store back when things were actually $1. And I said, well, you can pick out 4 things. And he said, well, no, I have $5. I said, no, there's tax. And, people, it's the same thing with our healthcare. People think, when you go to the ER or you're going for, a cold or going to the doctor for all these things, that it's free. It's not free. There's a cost to all of that. But I also say, our government is such that there isn't a lot of incentives for things like, improved healthcare. Like they could give some sort of incentive for, joining a gym, and like those are the things that should be encouraged. Or if you were, vitamins and some supplements, but that's not the case, right? It's just they're almost encouraging people to just keep going to the doctor, go get your flu shot. I mean, this is the message always is get another shot, but and they say it's free. It's not free. So you think those shots that you're getting are free? They're not free. Yeah.
No, it's they've decided how they're going to spend our money. That's what that is, whether you like it or not.
Right. And this is where, and I'm that person too, that, being in the media, being a journalist, that wasn't always probably as aware of things when it came to as much of history and economics. And, that's something I've worked on, and now I'm much more aware about the importance of, understanding how the economy works and being able to have those types of discussions. I'm on a roundtable here weekly on a local radio station, and usually I'm the person I just ask questions. I said, instead of just jumping on a bandwagon to support something, and I'm usually, I always say I'm the nonpartisan person, because I'm not representing any political party. I've been at different times asked by, I think, each political party to do various work, and I usually stay away from that, because I really want to be able to have the freedom to speak about, whoever's in power and challenge some of those things. So if this was happening with a conservative government, I would say we should be doing the same challenge.
Yep.
The concern I have, after reflecting back and looking at coverage over the years, there seems to be a different approach of how hard hitting some of the questions are against some people and politicians versus others. I just heard an interview, and this is what disturbs me as a reporter, where this reporter is arguing. It was an interview with Pierre Poilievre. It was at a Scrum or news conference. And what was the question she was asking? It was, think about government support for media or whatever. But she kept interrupting him. And he said, do you want me to answer the question? Because he said, your question has false information, and this person didn't like that. So it went back and forth. And I thought, there's a time and a place to challenge, but we've lost a lot of respect towards, like, if you're asking someone a question, let them answer the question. Well, even if you don't like it,
there's an exchange right now, a new one, in exactly the same vein.
Bring it home.
Why did your party want to grant over $100 million in regulatory relief to the mainstream media?
We don't want to give any tax dollars to the mainstream media. Our belief is that the mainstream media and all...
Your party's decision to grant regulatory relief?
So I'll answer your question. The media that is bought and paid for, where are you from, by the way? Which outlet are you in? Which outlet? Which outlet?
Canadian Press.
Okay, Canadian Press. So you're talking about tax dollars for media. Isn't CBC your biggest? Isn't I can answer. Yeah, and you want to answer?
The party want to grant $100 million in regulatory relief to the mainstream media.
When would you like me to respond? Okay, good. Okay, great. So, of course, you are a tax-funded media outlet and spreading Justin Trudeau's message.
Why did you
and so you're interrupting me again. You're interrupting me again. I am answering the question.
Do you regret granting $100 million in regulatory relief to the mainstream media?
Your question is false. So if you can allow me to correct your falsehoods, then we can answer the question directly. So, false. Canadian Conservatives do not believe in giving tax dollars to media outlets. That's Justin Trudeau. That's Justin Trudeau. That's Justin Trudeau. Okay, if you don't want me to answer the question, I'll move on to someone else. You're a tax-funded mouthpiece to the PMO. That's the reality. So,
question answered. You committed.
I'm trying to, but you're heckling. Are you going to let me answer the question, or are you just going to heckle on behalf of Justin Trudeau? Which is it?
I would love the answer.
Great. So our party does not support tax dollars for media outlets, because that's when we end up with biased media like you, who come here and articulate the PMO talking points rather than delivering real news to the Canadian people. Justin Trudeau gave Bell Media and other media tax dollars supposedly to protect media jobs. And then what happened? They all got laid off. So that the supposed justification for giving Bell all this money was that it was going to save media jobs. Well, they all got fired. So I guess that wasn't the real reason for giving tax dollars to the media. The real reason was for him to buy support from the media, which is what it actually did. So we believe that media should be driven by readership, viewership, and listenership. And that's what allows it to represent the Canadian people rather than taking marching orders from the PMO.
Sometimes I listen to this, and you know, the thing about someone like Pierre Poilievre, he can come back at you, right? Like, to me, if you're going to take on someone like that, I always said, you know, in any debating anyone, there's certain people I'm like, even as a reporter, I'd be like, whoa, that'd be someone you wouldn't want to take on. You better come prepared. But I've also had bosses like that. I remember, you know, if I was going in to make a pitch for something, right? I better come prepared and know the answers. If I was going to make a proposal for spending money, or this was when I was a manager in a advertising promotion department. But yeah, when I hear that type of back and forth, it doesn't make me feel great as a former journalist too, or because it's just, it doesn't get anywhere. It just causes this, like, it just further solidifies what he's saying. Like, this is the point they don't seem to understand. Like, ask the question, let him answer it. Ask a follow-up question.
So what do you think the reporter was doing there? Was the reporter trying to badger him? Did the reporter have an agenda, a mission? Was it genuine? What are you thinking?
You know, I'm going to answer it this way, that I don't know. And I don't want to ever say that I know what was in, because I don't know the whole context of why this reporter was going after that specific topic and issue so strongly. I mean, it was definitely, there was a method. You know, my mom used to say, method to your madness, right? That it does seem to me strange that it would be that passionate. Like, the question is really so strongly worded. And I mean, that would be a question. I don't know. What I can say is that, to me, that's not the appropriate approach when you're at a news conference and you're asking questions of a politician. But I think this goes to, and this is where I may sound like a bit like maybe old school on this, but like, show some respect. I think you can still be tough and be respectful. And there seems to be now this belief that, you know, you have to be kind of coming at a politician. And I would say, whether you're asking Trudeau or Poilievre or whoever, like, ask a question and ask a follow-up question. What I find is missing is those follow-up questions. And certain politicians seem to get more of a pass than others. And I've been noticing this now I've been studying a lot of coverage and, you know, how things are worded. And, you know, words are very powerful. So how you use a certain word can really make someone look worse and you can make someone look better based on the headlines you're using. Yeah. And I've noticed a definite trend towards certain parties getting tougher verbiage than others. And I don't think that is, I'll say this, I don't think that's right. It's not. If we are really saying, if media wants to be objective and say that they are objective. I was listening to, you know, an interview with, I think it was Lisa Laflamme. It was on CBC, and it was talking about, you know, about media and where we're going and the problems with it. And I have to say this, a lot of times the media at times has brought it on themselves. And that's the type of questioning that doesn't make journalists look very professional.
Yeah, I agree. I can't ever remember. I don't think I've ever behaved like that in a news
No.
conference. No, you ask a
I
question, you let them answer, you ask another question, and you try to make your question count.
Yeah, I have asked tough questions. I remember way back when. Who was it? He was a liberal. I think who was it? And I was on the phone, but I was just asking the question, and the politician was giving a very political answer. So I said, okay, I'm going to ask the question again, and gave another answer. I said, okay, you don't appear to be wanting to answer this question. Would you like to answer it? Because if not, we might as well wrap up the interview. You know, like I just want to be clear. Here's my question. You're giving me an answer that's not like it's completely separate from what I was asking, but I was being respectful. And we finally agreed to, end the call. He called my editor and complained about me, but I went over explaining. The editor said, kind of, okay, good for you. But at no time did I, yell or interrupt him. I gave him an opportunity, and I had it all documented. Here's my question. Here's the answer. And someone commented. I sometimes keep an eye on. Let's see. What was it about? All media people have personal biases. Yes, I would never, even when I was in mainstream media working, and people would say, "Well, you have there's no such thing as complete objectivity, but you can still work on being fair, being respectful, and we all come to the table with our backgrounds, right? How we're seeing the world. There's more extreme biases. Now what's happening too, we have more media outlets that have, clear political agendas. But at least if you know that, like, I don't understand why people get so upset about this. And whether it's, we saw it with the Tucker Carlson Putin interview. Okay. And I said, of course it's propaganda. Like,
yeah.
But why is only one side propaganda? Like, because when we're interviewing any leader, of course, that's propaganda. Like, it's especially during wartime, everything is propaganda. You have to listen to different people, and most people, if you hear different views, people have to make up their mind. Okay, this person said this, and they're right about certain things. Rick, you and I can exchange discussions, and we're not going to always agree on things, but I don't look at it like, oh, Rick, you have complete bias. We won't always agree. When I'm reading the comments, not everybody's going to agree what we're talking about. I'm not going to agree with everything they're saying, but I appreciate when people, make comments, and that are at least, I appreciate that, because I think that is true. And I think more journalists need to embrace that idea and not try to pretend that they're completely objective. I'm not objective. I mean, I try to be on my show, but
yeah,
I'm who I am based on how I grew up, how I've different jobs I've had, people that cross my path. Of course, I have a bias.
So speaking of Tucker Carlson, he was today at the World Government Summit. Now, the World Government Summit kicked off with a keynote speech from Klaus Schwab. And then the end of the day, I think it ended with this. I watched some of this today. I did watch pretty much the entire Tucker Carlson presentation. And I'm going to bring it to you here now. I'll play a little clip from this, and then I'll get your reaction to this, because you tell me, is this oh, hang on a second here. I've got audio playing. What is going on with... There it is there. Okay, let's bring it up here instead. We'll play this clip. This is the one that's really getting the most play. And this is him talking about, visiting Russia. And he's very complimentary about the city of Moscow.
What was radicalizing, very shocking and very disturbing for me was the city of Moscow, where I'd never been, the biggest city in Europe, 13 million people. And it is so much nicer than any city in my country. I had no idea. My father spent a lot of time there in the 80s when he worked for the US government and barely had electricity. And now it is so much cleaner and safer and prettier aesthetically, its architecture, its food, its service, than any country, city in the United States that you have to, and this is non-ideological. How did that happen? How did that happen? And at a certain point, I don't think the average person cares as much about abstractions as about the concrete reality of his life. And if you can't use your subway, for example, as many people are afraid to in New York City because it's too dangerous, you have to sort of wonder, like, isn't that the ultimate measure of leadership? And that's true, by the way, it's radicalizing for an American to go to Moscow. I didn't know that, I've learned it this week, to Singapore, to Tokyo, to Dubai and Abu Dhabi. Because these cities, no matter how we're told they're run and on what principles they're run, are wonderful places to live that don't have rampant inflation, where you're not going to get raped.
Sir,
and so,
excuse me.
What is that?
Propaganda?
You know, he went to one place or a few places in Moscow, and that's his perspective on things. And I think, okay, like I've talked to other people as well. I know someone actually that's from Russia originally went back and, you know, maybe had some different views, has a different philosophy. But to me, I'm like, I can listen to that and go, okay, that's one perspective. I mean, where is the line drawn when it comes to what is propaganda, what isn't, right? I mean, that interview with Putin, I don't know, I found it interesting to listen to, and just as I would any, you know, major interview like that. But I found it also interesting that because there was such a focus on being told not to listen to it, that, oh, I'm listening to it now, because it's like when they, you know, banned books and that. I remember in high school, right? The one book they told us they couldn't make us read. Everybody went out to go get that book, right?
Yep.
It was a Margaret Lawrence book too, a Canadian author. So just because it had, and that at the time it was like there was this racy scene that was kind of a sex-based scene in The Diviners. So
yeah.
You know, he went to a city, he described it, and he said it was better than, you know, cities in America. Now, I might disagree. I've traveled in the States and been to some really nice places too. And so that's maybe, I
Depends
think
on
it's
where you go.
Yes.
And then there's, you know, there are also the questions that surround how does that happen? How do they keep the city that clean? I mean, what do they do with their homeless people? Are there just no homeless people, or do they euthanize them? Like, we don't know. I don't know what is. So it might be great to have a nice, clean city, but there might be other issues.
This is where we, you know, when we hear these interviews like this, it's one person's view of things. Just like when, you know, when I was reporting, you'd go cover something. It's one person's view of a story. There should be some things that are fairly consistent, but this is why you need to allow different viewpoints and have different, have a diversity of views, not only a diversity of people.
Now, see, what I'm also seeing today, connected to Tucker Carlson's appearance at the World Government Summit, is, I would say, a network of journalists or a group of journalists. Maybe you can argue they're a network, or maybe just loosely associated, or maybe just of similar mind, but reinforcing what he's saying, propagating it. And some of these journalists, I would say, in my view, they probably are propagandists. And then they're using what Tucker Carlson says to further the narrative and further the Russian cause, if you will, in this time of war. So that begs the question, did Tucker Carlson start that snowball rolling down the hill on purpose? And then they, you know, jumped on it to accelerate it? Or did they just grab something that he said organically and then made use of it? These are questions we really don't have answers to, and may never.
Yeah, and I just wrote something about this. I said, curiosity for me is both, it's my greatest strength and my greatest weakness. Like because it just makes me want to ask more questions, learn more every day. And sometimes I wish I could shut it off and just like, no, stop being curious about things. So I see it as, when it comes to wars, we need to have more information. We need to have an understanding. And I come from a perspective that, wars are a horrible, horrible thing. And once they start, it's difficult to, pull back from them, right? So whatever war we're looking at, and we're talking about 2 wars, but there's other horrible things happening in the world. These just ones that have sort of been dominated to a great deal. They've made the world stage because of the US. So and I often see this about, when we talk about, if you come from a more faith perspective, sins. Why are some sins seem to get elevated more than others? And
what Tucker's interview with Putin made me do was go and look at the other side in a more vigorous way. And what I've come away with, and this is just my personal perspective, is I see validity in the narratives on both sides. It just depends on your worldview, the way you view sovereignty. It's your political beliefs, what you want for the future. So if it's not that there's one is right and one is wrong. It's just that they have different visions of the future and a different view of the past, the history. So, and what is legitimate? What's a sovereign government? Should Ukraine have the right to self-determination? Should they have the right to be a sovereign country? Or does Russia really have claim there? Should NATO have pushed in right up against the doorstep of Russia? And legally, were they allowed to? Or was it a wise thing to do? I don't think it was a wise thing, but legally, in international law, did they have the right to offer Ukraine EU membership, which is really what sparked this war? Not membership in NATO. It was the agreement that was going to allow Ukraine to join the European Union for an economic agreement, and Russia didn't want that. And so, if you go back and you really start to look at all the things that led up to this, you go back to 2013 at Lithuania and the conference that was held there as Ukraine was looking to enter the EU, and there was already an agreement in place in principle that they'd worked on for 5 years, and then clearly Putin didn't want it. He put pressure on the president of Ukraine to not sign it, and then he shows up at the last minute, the president of Ukraine, and he says, "No, I can't sign this thing." And they're like, "Well, why?" And he wouldn't say why, but it was pretty clear that he was getting pressure from Russia, and it's pretty clear why. You're living right next door to a superpower, the largest country in the world, and they don't want it. So, is Ukraine really a sovereign country? I've said all along, Ukraine is in a kind of unique place, because not only do they have to live right next door to a superpower and be mindful of that, just as we do in Canada, living next door to the United States, right? So we, they have to be. That's the reality for them, and through history, they've been used as sort of a doormat for different governments. We're going to go to war with Russia, and we're going to use that as a doorway to get into Russia. You have Germany going in there. You have the old Soviet Union coming back the other way, and the people are caught in the middle on both sides there. It's their history is very tragic. So many people have died as a result, and here we go again.
And what you've just said and described is what a lot of people aren't aware of or don't step back to think. So, if you're listening to that interview, I did the same thing. It made me go, oh, I want to go research more. But whenever I hear someone, whether even if it's a politician, I want to go learn more about that. If there's, I don't just go, oh, geez, listen to that interview and well, he must be right. And that's why I always say, yes, propaganda is coming from all sides though.
That's right.
And this is the same argument I make around censorship, because if you censor this group, the tables get turned, and people seem to, they don't like it when they want to maybe, shut someone else down, but they don't want their view shut down. And just like, hearing different political views, but we have to understand history and also look at it through the lens, not our own lens. We look at everything like living in a border city, because I didn't grow up here, right, in Windsor. Living in a border city has taught me to see things like, I come from a little bit more the other part of, Canada or Ontario. And so a lot of the US news, I try to always think of it as through a lens of a Canadian lens, but, and then be aware though, that if I'm looking at news in Michigan, it's going to be different than Ohio, different than California, different than Texas. And people in Canada, even when it comes to firearms, we're used to in Canada, one rule across Canada. In the States, it's different state by state. And it's a whole different philosophy of understanding, I just use guns as one example, but there's many other things, whether it's drugs or all sorts of issues. You have to understand the culture. And as much as we're like the US, we're also different, and people forget that. And I think, so just imagine trying to understand some of these other world conflicts, and we're looking at it through our lens. That's why we have.
Well, certainly here in Canada, and I think in the United States as well, people barely know their own local or even national history, let alone Russian history or the history of Europe. We're sadly lacking in that area, and I think there's a lack of education when it comes to economics, politics. It's difficult for people to assess things when you don't really have enough grounding. Not to say that people aren't educated, because we have some very intelligent, highly skilled people, but people tend to specialize and focus in their areas. And when it comes to these other issues, I think for the most part, people are busy living their lives. They don't have time to dig into the nuance of a geopolitical struggle or even a war. They've got to put food on the table and go fix the pipes or fix that guy's car, or go to the office and type on the keyboard to provide some service to somebody, or do whatever people are doing.
Yep. And I just said this to my son. I said, the reason I'm questioning back to the Arrivecan app situation and the media coverage and what's happening, and the reason I want to push for it, I said, I'm doing this for you and your future too, because you need to be understanding and asking some of these questions, because there's, again, I read a stat about how much more money people like my son's generation, how much more money they're going to need to be making, and what the, when will he ever be able to get a house? It's such a different time. And if that generation doesn't understand the why is this happening? And
I know you got to go soon. And so first, I want two things. I want to first get your view on whether you think this Arrivecan scandal will be a major issue in the upcoming federal election. And then I want to run this surveillance video of this guy setting the church on fire. Get you to comment on that as well. But first, give me your view on the Arrivecan scandal.
Yes, I think it is going to be, depending on when. Now, here's the thing, depending on when that election gets called. Now, as all of this information starts to seep out, I really question how other parties can continue to support the Liberals on this. That's number one. I also know, who knows what happens between now and the election, right? But I do think the Conservatives will certainly keep this issue alive. And it's pretty hard for this to disappear, especially when you have the Auditor General saying the things she said. I mean, that was pretty aggressive commentary she gave.
Yeah, complete, or what was it? Willful disregard.
Yeah, I mean, she
For
didn't pull
accounting?
many punches there, which I mean, you know, it could have been soft pedal more. I think she knew, like to me, if she's saying that, it's so much worse than what we're even knowing. Because you know, most people I know in that kind of realm, financial auditors tend to err on the side of being more careful. They're not going to go to embellish things, you know, they're not like, you know, they're not like those PR people. You know? uh, so I say that tongue in cheek, but yeah. So when I hear a financial person saying something, I'm like, I'm leaning in, going, it's probably a lot worse.
Yeah, so it seems like this is something that is likely to linger for months and be a real problem for Justin Trudeau over I'd say the course of at least the next year. And do you think we're going to have an election within the next year, within this
You know,
this calendar year?
When it all came out about, you know, the Chinese interference, I thought that was gonna, like, I keep saying, oh, this will be the reason, and then nope, and then oh, this will be the reason. So I'm at a loss. I'm at a complete loss to see how we ended up where we are now. And the difference with this, though, as more information comes out, I think there's a lot more. Yes, and we're both being careful about this, but there's a lot more information yet to bubble to the surface that is not just around what I call the oops or the geez, you know, we put the money in the wrong column, or you know, I'm not a finance person, but it's very questionable. There's a lot of questions that need to be asked about where that money went. And what's interesting is there were people, it looks like people were paid, but there's no, where's the work they did? Now, it'd be different if they came out and said they paid people and they have all saying, here's what we did. We looked up these software things and we, you know, we spent money on IT stuff and we had to go set up a server room and they showed, and we could say, well, that's a lot of waste. But the question is, right now, what seems to be coming up is that money was being spent and there's no evidence of any work being done.
Empty offices that maybe don't even exist, where, you know, money that's just not accounted for, period. Where did it all go?
Because there's a difference between wasteful spending and
funds that simply can't be tracked.
Right. And someone said this to me, you know, this happens. It's not like we should be shocked that like people, friends get, you know, they get a, you know, here's a gig that you get and we'll maybe, you know, embellish, give you a little extra. This person said to me, if they're going to do that, you know, you think they'd go like, you know, from 80,000 to a couple 100,000, maybe 5 million. It might have, we could have went, well, but 60, like, that's,
hey,
if you're going to, I guess if you're going to, I won't say anymore.
As I said earlier, you know, to you today, it brings back memories. The big one for me is the $1 billion boondoggle. That was back, you know, when the Harper government came to power, and that was one of the major issues in that election. It was $1 billion that they couldn't account for. The Liberal government at the time, $1 billion. It was like, how do you not account for $1 billion? It just goes poof. It's like, where did it go? And as a result, you know, that helped propel at the time Stephen Harper to power. But even now, this is why Canadians, you know, it's our own fault because we don't pay enough attention. If I went down the street and I asked people about the $1 billion boondoggle, I guarantee you I would get 100% of the people on the street saying, what are you talking about? They would not even remember it. And that's $1 billion gone that was never found, even to this day. $1 billion. So 60 million, I guarantee you, that's just a drop in the bucket.
Yeah, I agree, Rick. I agree. You know, we had that talk earlier and I kind of went, $1 billion?
Yeah. And that was from years ago. So let's move on to this church thing. So this guy in a mask caught on a surveillance camera dumping gas in what appears to be the doorway of this church in Regina. And police obviously have released this surveillance video that we are about to show you. It happened, I believe it was it Friday that it took place at 2049 Scarth Street in Regina, and then this guy sets the gasoline on fire and starts the church on fire. So let's take a look and see what this guy looks like. Real Einstein, forgot to take the cap off. Really, really bright guy. Just about sets himself on fire here. Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah. Idiot. Oh my God. So we've now had, just in the last few years, over 80 churches across Canada set on fire, in many cases burned right to the ground. 80.
You know, this goes back to what we were talking about, you know, again, connecting the dots, asking questions. Why has there not been more stories talking about 80 churches, right? We've seen it, you know, again, this goes to why are certain, even with protests, right? We've seen protests now. Why is the coverage different, or why is there an allowance for certain things? I just saw in Oakville on the weekend, you know, someone had climbed up onto their a post where they have a center clock, and there's a Canadian flag, and there was someone climbed up with Spider-Man, I guess, and Spider-Man outfit, completely covered, and put the Palestinian flag over the Canadian flag. Yep. And then we saw that groundswell of anger when there was a Canadian flag placed on Terry Fox statue. Mm-hmm. That's where I go. Listen, we need to be consistent. If there's going to be an outrage about something, why are certain things getting more outrage than others? And to me, you know, any damage or desecration to any sort of religious, whether it's a mosque, a church, a temple, anything, right? That should be treated with, like, that to me is just horrendous. Like that's one area where people, I think, should just, whatever you may think of whatever religion, like that should be also investigated and treated the same. But I think we've seen, you know, certain stories higher on the list of coverage, depending on whether it's maybe a mosque versus a church. And, yep. You know, I hear this a lot too, you know, the anger towards, you know, based around people who are Christian. And and
the instant response from many when I posted that video overnight was, and the cops won't do anything about that. And indeed, I can say that in most cases, it appears police have not laid charges in connection with these arsons across Canada. And it really escalated after the reports on the, at the time, what were reported as mass graves. I think it was Jagmeet Singh from the NDP who was the first to use that phrase. And yet since then, we haven't really seen any proof that there are mass grave sites, yes, and a lot of questions surrounding what exactly is under the ground in these sites. Because I've seen reports that indicate maybe there's no grave there in some of these locations, and in, you know, the main location, there's been no activity in terms of you know, really exhumations or further investigations. All we have is that inconclusive ground penetrating radar. And I have firsthand experience covering stories where people have used ground penetrating radar to try to find grave sites. Even here locally, it was done. Just in the downtown area here because of, you know, it was a historic site related to the War of 1812. And ground penetrating radar is not conclusive. It just kind of gives you a rough indication of where you should maybe exhume or start to dig to find out what's really down there. You're seeing shadows. It's like sonar, right? It could be a variety of things underneath there. So, but as a result of all of that, our flag, Canadian flag, was flown at half staff for how many months? Was it almost like 6 months or 8 months or long time? A national disgrace, people made to feel ashamed of their country as a result of all of that. Churches set ablaze as people got upset, and politicians defending the arsons, saying, well, you can kind of understand why, because they were clearly afraid to say anything other than that, given the politically charged environment. And we're still seeing today churches set on fire, which honestly, it makes me concerned because people of different religions are persecuted around the world, and Christians too, in huge numbers in various countries. I'm concerned about what I'm seeing here in Canada.
I agree. And, I have talked to, and interviewed some Indigenous people as well. And one of the issues that always comes up is the idea that there's a lot of focus on this outrage, but yet we also have current day, we have water issues, we have problems on reserves that aren't being dealt with. And, we need more than the performative. We need more than the, kneeling or going to wearing an orange shirt, worrying about, changing the lyrics of our anthem. Instead of all that outrage, we need to redirect and get some of these things fixed for current people, right? And and this comes from, not just me saying this is also the Indigenous community as also. And it's not like you can say every Indigenous person thinks the same. It's like, as a woman, I remember this way back, it used to be like, well, women, we don't all have one voice. There's, and in any community, you often hear people too that are outraged about, not having, having a wrong word in our anthem. It tends to be, it's often not an Indigenous person that's complaining about it. And I think that there's, I always have this problem. If you can't ask questions and have a reasonable discussion about things, then there's a problem. And we should be able to ask some of these questions and ask about the graves. And listen, what happened to Indigenous people from some people in some churches was horrific. But in every religion, there is horrible stories going on. And it doesn't mean that all Christians are bad. It doesn't make all Catholics bad, but does need to be some examination of, what happened, but to make it that you can't ask questions about the graves that's a concern, because we should be able to examine it, because if not, we're building up this belief that there's only one way of looking at things. Oh, wait a minute. When else have we seen that, right? Like, when you think there's only one answer and only one view and only one person or one group of people is right, that's very dangerous.
I think there are questions surrounding the use of the phrase mass graves. That to me is like they dug a ditch or a trench and just piled bodies in and then covered it over. That appears to not really be the case. And I've been saying, what we need, that everybody needs, First Nations, Indigenous people, all Canadians, we need truth. So if we have questions surrounding these graves, then let's invest whatever amount of money we need to invest to get some answers and find out as much as we possibly can, so that we're dealing with facts. If you want truth and reconciliation, then let's have it.
Yes.
But you have to start from, from a place of honesty, of good faith and facts.
Well, Jody Wilson-Raybould came to Windsor and spoke, and I did, got to meet her and everything. And, there's another example of here's a woman who's Indigenous woman that had potential that could have been embraced by our current government to be a leader. And instead, what happened to her? She spoke up.
Trudeau fired her.
Yeah. And to me, that story, I don't know why that story is kind of just filtered off too. And it was like, remember when the big saying, it's 20, whatever, when did he say it's 2017? Or remember that statement, we need, and this whole idea that having 50% of women is going to, no, like, and I'm someone who's the product of, I've had mentors that have been women and men. In my career, I've had probably even more support that have helped lift me up, encourage me, provided training from men. So like, it's not this, I don't see it as this men, women, women good, men bad when it comes to promoting women in workplaces. And it's the same thing with when they're talking about, Black community, Indigenous, like we need people that will, well, I always said, speak truth to power. And I always said this with my son. I always wanted him to question and be critical and push back. And then I used to say, well, not with me, though. And I joked about it. I wished he, but to this day, he's going to be his own person, right? And I always appreciate someone who will speak up, be direct, and they don't always have to agree with me. Hey, I would like it if everybody agreed with me and liked everything I said. Don't get me wrong. I like it. And so I look at the comments. Sometimes I'm like, oh, they said a nice comment. And then I read another one. I'm like, ooh, ouch. But I like when people are asking questions and challenging, right? So for all the people commenting, I do try to read the comments. I mean, and I like when, when there's a challenge put out, and I see some humor in here too. I can see there's some tongue-in-cheek type comments, but there's also, and then there's some ones that I'm like, I don't know what that means, but I do appreciate the people who ask some questions, like the person that commented about, all media have bias. Yes. And I used to shock people back in the day when I would agree with them, because I think they thought I was going to defend, and I'm like, no, like you, and they, one time someone came up to me and said, you can't believe everything you read in the paper. And I said, no, you can't, and you shouldn't. And they were so shocked that I said that, because I said, why would you agree? Like, it's just like what we said, listening to the Putin interview, or listening to Biden, or listening to Trump, or listening to Pierre Poilievre. Like, of course you should listen with curiosity. Listen. And to me, I like to hear different answers and perspectives. But I also have gone and done research. I've researched Pierre Poilievre on some podcasts talking about the economy. And I've challenged people when they say, like, if they say he's stupid, I said, okay, you may not agree with his politics, but he knows about the economy. So, but I would go, if I could, listen to some of the other people too, but it's a little harder to find some of those. But I want to go and learn about different perspectives. And this happened with Joe Rogan. I used to think Joe Rogan was a bit of a knuckle dragger, and I thought I believed what I'd heard about him. So what I did was I went and listened to some of his podcasts. So I've listened to, as I said, some of these longer interviews, and I would just encourage people to do that. Go listen. If you think you disagree with someone, I would say go spend some time, find them on a podcast, and listen to what they have to say. You may be confirmed that you go, yeah, that person I don't like them, but maybe you'll be surprised by what you hear.
I'm afraid to ask what you thought of me before you took a closer look.
Well,
do I have blood on my knuckles?
Yeah. No. As you know, I'm a guest on different shows. Actually, I'm on another show this Thursday night, which is like completely different than yours. We're going to be talking about clarity and messaging, right? So that's really more my other world I work into, talking about, branding and getting your message out. I'm on a roundtable on mainstream media radio I'm on your show. Like I think I'm someone who is curious about a lot of things, and I don't have to agree with every time I'm on a show. I don't agree with every time I'm on a different show or being interviewed by the person. I mean, but isn't that healthy to have? And just like everybody, why did everybody think Tucker Carlson had to embrace everything Putin said? Maybe he did. I don't know. Maybe he did. Maybe he didn't. But I bet you there's a lot of reporters, if they had a chance to interview Putin, do you think they'd go, oh, no, I couldn't interview him? Are you kidding me? There's not too many journalists that if they got tapped on the shoulder and said, hey, Putin has agreed to do an interview with you, do you think they'd say no? Mainstream media?
Oh, I'd go. Of course I would go.
But I think even a mainstream media journalist, if they were told they could have an interview with him, I bet you in a minute they'd be over there.
Yeah.
So
I think, the issue for the critics is not that the interview happened so much that it's who did it, because they don't trust
yeah.
it.
Oh, hello. This is exactly what I said too about whether it's like, Joe Rogan, and yet Joe Rogan continues to attract a greater audience. I'm one of those because I've listened to his longer interviews, and he doesn't agree with all of his guests. Sometimes he challenges, but what I like is that he gives them an opportunity to speak, because he's had people on and he lets them speak, and then he'll say why he disagrees with them. He gives his view, then he lets them answer, and he's willing to say, oh, you know what, I used to think this way back, I was this person, now I did my research and now I believe this. That's the kind of people I respect and why I listen to him. And I have people in my circle that think I'm like, as soon as I say Joe Rogan, they just like almost can't believe that I listen to him. And I said, well, go listen and then we'll come back and talk. Now I skip over, I don't listen to the MMA ones because I'm not a big MMA person, but and some of the comedians, sometimes I listen, but he's had Oliver Stone on, he's had Robert Kennedy Jr., he's had Robert Malone. He had Aaron Rodgers. I am an Aaron Rodgers fan, by the way.
I see.
But you know why I say that is a little bit related to football, because I'm not a big football person. But what I like about him is that he does his research. He's an interesting thinker. He does a lot of work and research on his health and how to be healthy, and some approaches to recovering from injury. And that's what I find. I appreciate that about him, whatever you may think of anything else. I like that he's very curious. I like curious people. That's the other thing. I mean, curious people fascinate me because they ask more questions, they push back. And that's, Rick, what I like about, when we're talking. You're also, know a lot more history than I would on things. So I like to listen to you when you're explaining some things, because it's another perspective that I need to learn more about too. And that's, yeah.
I don't really consider myself, a historian by any stretch, but I do try to inform myself so I don't sound like a complete idiot when I'm on here. And that is a concern. I remember, in my earliest days as a cub reporter, being mentored by some senior journalists who said that, they were sure that they would often write stories only knowing that people who were really well versed in whatever subject it was for that story, that the experts were probably sitting back watching what they had been saying, thinking, what a complete idiot. Right? Because we're not experts as journalists in these fields. We're just the eyes and ears of the public doing the best we can to convey information and all sides of a story. So if you sit there and try and spout off with an expert viewpoint, often you get caught. So
I often say, I do not know things. I'm the first to say, help me understand this, help me explain it. I'm doing now work in manufacturing, specifically in mold making, and I've just written a couple of things, and I'm pretty happy about things because after a couple of years under my belt now, I was told by a magazine editor, like, wow, this is really well done. It's well written. It's like, I even, I was describing machinery and equipment and I'm like, but what I did was I went to people that sell these machines and I said, explain this to me. And then I have to just kind of revise it. And I had him review my content after, and he said, wow, like I had done a good job. So that's the kind of thing as journalists. This is what we should be doing. We should be going to a diverse group of people, getting different opinions and views. And then your job is to bring it all together and say this and this, this and this, and explain things for people. Yep. That's kind of the ideal. Before we go on, and I want to ask one of your commenters, because I'm curious what, I think it's Big D. He says, I get more detailed news than Joe Rogan, dozens and dozens smarter people saying the same, giving out more information. Rogan. I would be very interested. You could drop where you get that information, because I would love to know more about if there is someone else that you're following or information item. So that's one of the commenters. I'm, and it's not that I listen to everything Joe Rogan says and goes, oh my God, he's one of many that I listen to a wide range of podcasts. The Free Press is another really good place that I get news from as well. It's an online, it's called thefp.com, thefp.com. Barry Weiss, who was one of the 3 that was part of the Twitter files. To me, the Twitter files just confirmed that everything that I thought during the whole pandemic, it confirmed that I wasn't losing my mind, that there was an actual attempt to keep information
suppressed.
Because there was, you start to think, people like us, Rick, right? And I mean, people like us in terms of we come from the more traditional journalism training, which is, you try to keep your own opinions out. You go interview people, you go to various experts. You don't rely on the same people all the time, and you try to get different viewpoints, right? So lost my train of thought there.
Well, I'll tell you, I agree with you. Where I'm at right now with things, though, is I'm also seeing that the pendulum has swung both ways.
Yeah.
So we're getting real polarization even on these issues like the vaccines. And
yes.
In my view, I'm seeing reporting or information coming out that is it's just so extreme on each side.
Yeah.
But the other side is also using it, I think, for political purposes. And we're not always getting actual factual information over there either. So it's becoming increasingly difficult to really find the truth.
Yeah. And, the other thing is there's lots of talk about the why people, from certain deaths and that. But here's what I think is it's usually never one thing. It's a multitude of things. And I've been listening and researching a lot now on the various food we're eating, processed foods, plus if you start connecting the dots again to why are there, whether it's cancer or whether it's heart issues, it's a combination of factors, not usually one thing. But I do know this: if you have a shitty immune system, that's going to be a problem for you. It's just now, some of it we can't control because it's just the air, and it's pretty hard to eat completely as a purist, right? But I do think our food is. I'm more and more starting to really understand what we're eating and ingesting, and the level of processed foods and what's in that stuff. When you look at ingredients that have a long list like that, I go, I can't
pronounce the words.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll eat that. How bad could it be? It's probably made from crickets, but looks pretty good. and that's probably the truth. Yeah. Even now, there's that cricket factory, farm, whatever you call those things up in London. It's a real thing. It's actually there. And when I tell some people that, they want us to eat crickets.
Yeah.
They're like, what are you talking about? That's not true. No, it's right over there. Just go down the block, turn left, and the cricket farm is right there. You're crazy.
There's things,
whatever.
and we all know there's things we thought were completely awkward.
Yeah,
I
here's
saw
a
another-
video of Nicole Kidman eating bugs.
Yeah.
They want you to do it. You're crazy. Okay.
Someone dropped a comment that I think they're referring to Jody Wilson-Raybould as maybe not all good. Listen, there are very few people, including myself. We're not all good. We're not all like I was referencing a very specific. I'm not going to be here to say she's 100% pure. Just like people used to say this about Mother Teresa also. Like we like to put people up on pedestals, and I always say be very cautious about putting anyone up on a pedestal. So I think her case is more just very specific to when she did speak truth to power, what happened to her. Like that's one example. But I think anyone, is Joe Rogan perfect? No. Like there's anybody that I'm referencing are people that here's one lesson that I've learned. Take the best, leave the rest.
And on that note, I know you have family stuff to attend to.
Yep.
So, Gail, just before you sign off, just to remind people how they can find your work.
Well, if you go over to YouTube and search Curious Minds with Gail Now, you'll find my show. Please go and listen. There's a couple people we referenced today that I've interviewed. Melissa Mabarkey was a really good interview. She's an Indigenous woman working in oil and gas. And we also did talk about that whole, performative issues around Indigenous, and because she grew up in poverty, and how she now is working in oil and gas and she's not an all or nothing person. She believes that there's room to improve on our environment, but also using technology and being more curious. I think later this week, I'm going to be interviewing someone from the Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses. A lot of the work I do focuses in manufacturing, but I also do other topics as well if it relates to curiosity. So please come over there. And some of you commenters, come on over and drop some comments and questions. And if you have any ideas, I'm always looking as well for, interesting people to interview. So.
Awesome. Gail Robertson, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Rick. Have a good night. And thanks, all commenters. Thank you for your comments. I've been reading a lot of them. So thank you. Keep the comments coming. And have a great night, everybody.
All right, see ya.
Okay, bye.
Okay, guys, and I'll be back right after this.
Hello, world. Are you awake? Uniting humankind by liberating millions of minds at a time. Maverick News. The world is watching. Maverick News. The world is watching.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
Okay, so that shooting we told you about in Houston, yesterday at Lakewood Church. It's a mega church. They've identified the shooter. I have a photo, and then I'm going to show you how the photo that was released doesn't really tell a complete story, and I'll show you what I mean. So first of all, here's the shooter identified as Genesee Moreno, and there's some surprises surrounding this case. 2 people injured. 1 child was shot. Someone else had an injured hip. Both taken to hospital yesterday. Nobody killed except for the shooter, who was taken down at the scene. And I believe we have a clip here with police coming up. Yes, updating this story. Start with this. This is a Houston Police Department, still investigating. And the thing is, they're not, some people are saying that, well, how can I put this? Genesee uses different pronouns. Let's go to the clip first of all, and I'll explain.
So she has utilized both male and female names, but through all of our investigation to this point, talking with individuals, interviews, documents, Houston Police Department reports, she has been identified this entire time as female, she, her, and so we are identifying her as Genesee Moreno, Hispanic female. There were 2 weapons.
Okay, so went in there, and I guess also there was a sticker or writing on the weapon that was used to do most of the shooting. I think there were 2 guns recovered. One of them had Palestine written on it, as I say, in either a sticker or some sort of writing. And so that was the photo that was released by the police. Other photos coming out here tonight, though. And here we go. So there's this one, and then there's this.
Good afternoon. My name is Jeffrey Escalante Moreno. Good afternoon. My name is Jeffrey Escalante Moreno.
So using the name Jeffrey at times. And these photos as well. So there's that, which we've seen, and that. Interesting story. Hang on here a second. I might have one other. Yeah, it's okay. We've got that. And the story continues, obviously. So that really, surprised some people. It surprised me. With this sticker saying Palestine on this AR-15, which was used in yesterday's shooting. There were also some anti-Semitic writings that have been recovered. However, police are saying that the motive behind the Sunday afternoon shooting has not been determined. Saying, quote, "We do believe that there was a familial dispute that had taken place between her ex-husband and her ex-husband's family, some of whom are Jewish, according to police." And we showed you footage yesterday from the scene of people fleeing the building. We showed you a television announcer, Spanish, who was just sort of looking around, wondering what was going on while shots were being fired. And tonight, even that video is becoming a little more difficult to find. And some people are thinking that a lot of this will be scrubbed from the internet. And bottom line is, people are kind of focusing now on the shooter as being a transgender who is being described by some as a terrorist. Because of the word Palestine being written on the weapon, and because of the writings. And yesterday at that news conference that we showed you, we didn't get to the pastor who also spoke. We do have this clip. Joel Osteen. Here we go. I think that's it, yes. I found his comments to be, I don't know, when I heard them yesterday, and I'm sharing them here with you now, the something about the tone of what he's saying I found odd, but let's just run it and you can assess.
Just believe that, you know, we're going to stay strong. We're going to continue to move forward. And there are forces of evil, but the forces that are for us, the forces of God, are stronger than that. So we're going to keep going strong and just, you know, doing what God's called us to do, lift people up and give hope to the world. Again, I want to thank all these gentlemen because, you know, I can only imagine if it would have happened during the 11 o'clock service. We were in between services going into the Spanish service. So, you know, if there's anything good of it, you know what, she didn't get in there and do a whole lot worse damage. So we thank God for that He's watching over all of us. And as the chief says, we're going to keep going strong and bringing hope to the world. But thank you again, Jim. Thank you.
So maybe I just maybe I'm just finding it odd because he's trying to find something positive or a silver lining in it. I don't know. Here's some footage from the scene yesterday inside the church. This is a different angle. This is different footage than what we showed you yesterday. Share it with you here now. Ooh.
Hey, para acá. Para allá, vámonos para allá. Vámonos para allá.
I don't know. Disturbing, scary. And here's the footage that we showed you yesterday of the television announcer. He's speaking in Spanish, but this is in Houston, inside the church. It's a mega church and a lot of things going on in there. This is what his reaction.
Diagonal 2024. Repito.
The call was cancelled.
What the?
So, there's also a story from Global News tonight. This is an exclusive Global, but I'm going to just acknowledge the work they've done on this. And I heard about this. I don't know if we've mentioned this on the program before or not, but the Canadian government, the Canadian military, has 83,000 rockets ready to be decommissioned. They're NATO standard. Ukraine wants them. And the question is, will Canada send them? 83,000 rockets. Ukraine's saying tonight that they need them desperately. They're running out of ammunition. Here, I'll bring up the Global News website. So they've done a fair bit of work into the background on this story. I don't want to steal their thunder, but I think it's an important story. It is something I'm sure I acknowledged this a 3 weeks ago, maybe, just briefly, but they have a lot of details in the work that they've done now. So I would encourage you to go there and check out their work. Saying here that a Ukrainian military leader is asking Canada to hand over tens of thousands of rockets that are awaiting demolition at a Saskatchewan military base. These are CRV-7 rockets, 83,000 of them. So it's a pretty simple question, really. Should Canada send them or not? And they say about 8,000 of them are in like pristine condition. So rather than blow them up and demolish them or defuse them or do whatever they do with them, to get rid of them, they're saying send them to Ukraine. So just something to take note of. And I'm going to queue up some other stories, and I'll be right back after this.
Feel the vibrations. Our quest continues. The truth is out there. We are Mavericks.
Also, just what I did forget to mention as well is that the shooter in that Houston incident, apparently from El Salvador, also has a lengthy criminal record. So we'll see if anything more comes of that. It seems these kinds of stories come, make headlines for a day or two, and then get memory hold. And I think that is a mistake because it seems like, well, it doesn't seem like there's just too much of it going on. And I see some trends, honestly. Similarities from incident to incident, but that is another story for another time, maybe. What else can I tell you tonight? We also have, I think we're going to go to the phones here in a moment. We've kind of touched on the Tucker Carlson thing. I was going to run more of that, but there's really, even though he was speaking at the World Government Summit, what he was saying, we've reported on here many times before. We've already touched on the story, so it is probably not worth just rehashing what we've already talked about or expanding on it too much. I don't think there's much new information there, really. Just notable that he was there, invited to speak at this event, Maybe what I will do is run a couple of, well, just a short clip of Klaus Schwab appearing on the same stage as Tucker Carlson today. And, you know, people have been hammering Pierre Poilievre, saying he's a member of the World Economic Forum. He went to Davos. Well, you can I guess you can assess for yourself what you think of Tucker Carlson taking to the stage today at the World Government Summit. Globalists on display there. He actually did have a couple of critical things to say about the people who spoke before him during the day. So I don't blame him for going and getting on the stage with those other globalist leaders like Klaus Schwab, who we bring to you here now.
Humankind will enjoy many more opportunities and possibilities. It's a transition. It's a transition from we first had the transition about 100 years ago from the agricultural society to the industrial society. But today, we speak about the transition into what I would call the intelligent age. And I did something maybe unusual. I took ChatGPT and I had a long discussion with ChatGPT, with my pot, if I may say so, to see how this new era will look like. And finally, I had about 20 pages of text, and I asked ChatGPT, summarize the text and tell me now, based on our discussion, how will the new era, the intelligent era, look like? And I read you the text. Envisioning a future propelled by the technologies of the fourth industrial revolution, we see a new dawn of human civilization, one that harmonizes technology with the deepest needs and aspirations of humanity. This vision unfolds within a society where artificial intelligence, robotics, the Internet of the Things, 3D printing, genetic engineering, quantum computing become the foundations of our daily life, yet are guided by a profound respect for human values, creativity, and the natural world. In this new intelligent age, technology is not merely a tool or an extension of human capabilities. It is a partner in shaping a world where every individual has the opportunity to reach their full potential. Education systems will be revolutionized by personalized learning platforms powered by AI, adapting to each student's pace and style of learning, ensuring that no one is left behind. Healthcare becomes predictive and personalized with treatments tailored to the genetic makeup of each individual. And remote monitoring technologies will ensure that high-quality care reaches even the most remote eras. The economy is transformed by a new wave of creative entrepreneurship, where small businesses and innovators have access to the global market through digital platforms, and manufacturing is democratized by 3D printing technologies. Workplaces evolve to prioritize human well-being, with robots and AI systems taking over repetitive and hazardous tasks, freeing humans to engage in creative problem-solving strategic thinking, and interpersonal connections that foster community and human relationship. I could go on and on, but at the core of this transformation is a commitment to ensuring that the benefits of technological advancements are equitably shared, bridging the digital divide and creating a more inclusive global society. Environmental stewardship is paramount, with technologies deployed to combat climate change, protect biodiversity, and restore natural ecosystems. This vision of the intelligent age, a new human-centered, creative civilization, is not a foregone conclusion, it's a choice. The future is not happening. We, particularly you as government leaders, you are shaping the future. So what does it mean for government leaders? 4 things. First, this new civilization is around the corner. It's not something for the next generation. The speed of transformation is enormous. So we have to prepare already now with all our forces for this new type of the intelligent age. Second, I think it's important to use technology not in order just to have more creativity and technical creativity, but to achieve certain objectives. And the objectives are very clear for humankind. It's to make our world more sustainable, more resilient, more human, and more equitable. The third objective for government leaders, of course, is also to engage populations into this change process. Because many people are afraid. People fear about this fast speed of change which they have to digest in their daily lives and in their professional lives. And finally, we need the guardrails. We need the ethical frameworks to make sure that we keep the ghost of AI in the bottle. And we have only the beneficial benefits, but we do not create a utopian future. Finally, if we look at leadership in this new age, political leaders, I think a political leader has to combine 3 different dimensions. He has to be first a technician, a scientist. He has to understand those new technologies. But second, he has to be a philosopher. He has to understand the interactions of those new technologies with the other parts of our daily lives. And finally, he has to be a humanist. He has to prioritize not technology, but the human aspect. So, if I look forward, we don't want to move into using the 4th industrial revolution into a cold bureaucracy. We don't want to move into a technocracy. What we want to do, we want to move in what I would call a humanocracy, a world where we use technology to use all our human potential and to create even a better world. Thank you.
Klaus Schwab. I'm looking at the comments on Rumble as this is rolling. I can't put Rumble comments up on the screen during the broadcast, but I'll read you a couple, especially for our podcast listeners. F you, a-hole. Not surprising. I can't read that one because it's way too violent. Bugs for you, filet mignon for Klaus. Hitler would have stirred up the crowd. This guy puts them to sleep. Okay, enough, Rick. You're pissing us all off. Klaus can stay in his closet. These are funny. Turn this guy over to Lord Leo, King of the Dungeon, says Dom Bom. I've had enough of Schwab. It goes on. Oh, I don't dare read the ones that are coming in now. We'll get banned for sure. Okay, I'll take a break. Then we're going to come back. We're going to take another shot at this new phone system. We'll see if it works. If it doesn't, I'll flip over to the old phone system, and you guys can join the conversation tonight. So, the first thing I will do is put the number for you guys to call, so I can put some calls into the queue, and there it is. You can call now. The phone lines are open at 1-888-722-1071. It's on the bottom of the screen. Call now. Call often. I will be right back after this.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarmingly, some media outlets simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think, and this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
In an ocean of lies a century deep, the truth awaits. Choose not the red pill. Choose not the blue pill. For both are an illusion. Discover the power of M. The power of individuality. We are Mavericks. We are the way to the light. Fear not the storm. Join our quest for truth. Truth will set you free. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, so you can call now. The number is, again, 1-888-722-1071. We'll get those phone lines warmed up, and we'll start taking our calls momentarily. Let me get the video queued up here to reinforce what that number is. Once again, 1-888-722-1071. Let's see if it works. Join the conversation. Call 1-888-722-1071. That's 1-888-722-1071. Be a maverick. Exercise your right to free speech. Call 1-888-722-1071. The phone lines are open. Call now at 1-888-722-1071. Maverick News. Call now. The world is watching and listening to you. And if you call in, punch 0 to join the conversation when prompted. So dial 1-888-722-1071 and then just tap on the 0 and you'll be able to join the conversation here on the Maverick News Channel.
Exile. The Knights of Malta. Maverick News. Join us. The world is watching.
Okay, those phone lines are open, so you can call and weigh in on tonight's conversation. We can talk about anything you want, really. Be great to have some new callers. We also have other things to talk about here tonight, though. I had a story here about Donald Trump. I hope I still have my notes up. If you want to talk about the church arson, you want to talk about the Lakewood church shooting, we can talk about that. You want to talk about that Super Bowl? We continue to have the discussion on that if you want. Or that Arrivecan app. But Trump has asked the Supreme Court to pause the immunity ruling in the 2020 election case. That lower court's decision that rejected his claims of immunity from criminal prosecution. So we're following that. And we'll pick up our first caller of the night. Hopefully we can hear what's going on. And go ahead. Who's on the line? Okay. Yeah. Right. And hopefully people can hear you. Can people just tell me whether you can hear the mouth of the South on the other end of the line tonight? Just checking the chat. Can you hear them, folks? We can't hear Leo. Of course not, because why would it work properly when it doesn't work? Okay, let me just let me check one thing. If it doesn't work, then I will flip over to the old phone system. But you should be dialed in, should be working. I'm going to click. Just one last test. Anybody can go ahead, Leo, and just let's see if they can hear you. Any luck there, folks? Are we getting Leo on the other end of the line? I don't know. Okay. They're not hearing you. Okay. I'll dump out of this. I'll go over to the old phone system. Give me a moment, and we'll get you on, Leo. You'll just have to call in on the old number. It still works. I just have to get it fired up. All right. I'm signing off of this. See ya. Okay, folks, let me just get that old system fired up here. Ignore that number on the bottom of the screen. This won't take but one moment, and we'll get this thing working. The old-fashioned way. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. It's just a very expensive way. And I have to punch a bunch of buttons here. But yeah, Trump, that immunity case, that will be precedent setting once it is finally resolved. It's an important question. And, you know, people say a president is, no politician is above the law. Nobody is above the law. But different laws apply to different people in different ways. And, for instance, you know, if you're the president of the United States, yeah, you know what? Sometimes you have to kill people. or the leader of any country. And with that in mind, laws do apply differently. So when he's talking about being immune, I kind of think about it in those terms. Okay. The old phone system is hooked up. I just need to make a couple of other changes to the audio configuration here. I'll run a quick promo, and that promo will be this one, where it gives you the proper number to call for tonight's call-in show.
Join the conversation. Call 1-833-975-3733. That's 1-833-975. Free. Speak up. Speak out. Make your voice heard. Maverick News. Fighting for freedom by defending your right to free speech. Be a Maverick. Join us.
Okay, rock and roll. Look at that. The old system back up and running. And let's bring Leo in on the call this way. Hopefully it works now. Okay, Leo, you go ahead. The floor is yours.
Hello. Hello. Can you hear me?
I hope so.
Hello.
We should be able to hear you now. It's all set up the way it used to be.
Okay. The Arrive scam.
Yeah.
Okay, now, I don't know. I don't know what world these people are in, but if I take money from anybody for a job done, I'm issued a T4. Okay, and I have to claim that on my taxes.
Yeah.
Right? So they say they're having a problem tracing the money back. What, they don't issue T4s? They just issue a check tax-free?
Well, of course, they would be hiring companies, right? But so you wouldn't get T4s sent out by the government, but there should be a paper trail. There should be receipts, billing, invoices, payments coming in, accounting. But like they've taken millions of dollars. The auditor said a blatant disregard for accounting.
Yeah, I'm wondering if the Klingbeil brothers will be involved in this somehow. And those were the two that were involved in the We Charity scam.
There's another one I'd kind of forgotten about it. You see, even I become forgetful. But yeah, that was huge. The We Charity scam.
That was $250 million.
Yeah.
Wasn't it? No, $500 million.
Yeah, something like that.
Wasn't it $500 million or close to $1 billion scam they tried pulling, and nothing ever happened.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. I don't know where we're headed, but there's more integrity in Indonesian politics than there is in Canada by the looks of it.
Yeah, that was the We Charity scandal was a $543.5 million untendered contract, which they had offered to the We Charity, which of course was, all about the Trudeaus and the Trudeau family being given lucrative speaking gigs.
And they got caught, and nothing happened.
Yeah.
What, Margaret Trudeau had to pay back $250,000?
Something like that.
If she even did.
It's hard to remember. But yeah, you see how the money gets
Right,
laundered, right? It's like, oh yeah, would you like to come and give a speech? We'll give you like $150,000. Now, what is Tucker Carlson worth? I think he gets in excess of $100,000 to speak. Now.
That's pretty good money.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he's a hot
I could
commodity.
speak all day long.
Yeah.
Hey, Rick, I could go all day long for that kind of money.
Yes.
For less.
Oh, yeah.
I'm on the Ricky Walker show now. Get fuck all.
That's right. Welcome to the club, man. Welcome to the club.
Welcome to the club. Yeah, it's nothing but scams and kickbacks and you name it, right? When do we draw? When do the police draw the line and go, enough's enough? There's here, half measures of bail is nothing, okay? And these guys have gone long over the half measure mark.
The other thing,
So,
they
who
use
knows?
artwork as a way to launder money, in my view. Like, look at Hunter Biden and his art, and then, money, people buy the art for exorbitant fees. I don't think he's that good. Art sales, charities, nonprofits, NGOs, the list goes on.
GoFundMe's.
Yeah.
GoFundMe's. Crowdfunding.
Yep.
Gifts and Go.
Yep, is another way to move
There's
money
a
around.
million, exactly, right? So, you can set up a YouTube page and have people just donate, even though the ones donating are you because you got a bot. Okay, that's donating all the money and it's washing the money.
Yeah.
I believe that's going on.
It's absolutely going on. I'm certain of it too. I think you hit the nail right on the head. Yep.
Yeah, enough's enough with this government, right? I don't know.
I also saw
somebody says I need to monetize my mouth.
I also saw a report.
Prong 71 says.
Sorry, Leo.
Hey,
go ahead.
Prong 71 says I need to monetize. My, your mouth.
Monetize your mouth.
Yeah, monetize.
Yeah.
Well, if you can make money off my mouth, Thong, do it. How's that sound? Anybody can make money off me. Do it.
I also saw an interesting clip with Tamara Litch today, of course, involved with the truckers in the original convoy, and it appeared to be a clip today of her saying that some of the money, or maybe even all of the money from the GoFundMe, was being released finally, and then there was an odd comment at the end of the clip saying that the money had actually never been frozen. Go figure. I thought that was a very interesting thing to say. I don't have any details on it. I don't know what that all means. It's just something I saw that is factual. I did see it. Beyond that, I'm not sure what to report on it, but I'll be trying to dig into that and maybe get people more information for tomorrow, if not later during this broadcast, or if anybody else has information on it, maybe you'd like to call in and share that with us, as long as it's factual. I think that's an important story, because freezing of bank accounts, freezing the donations that came into the truckers, that was a big issue. It has been a big issue, and it has that is one of the things that eroded confidence, public confidence in the banking system and in government.
Mm-hmm. I never heard anything about it.
Yeah, so.
Never heard anything about it.
All I've been able to get from that today is that one short clip just before I came on air tonight. So
you have that reel I sent you in Messenger?
Oh no, I didn't notice that. Let me just see. Okay.
Yeah, you need to play that. I think everybody will like this.
Yeah, I can't play that one, Leo. I can't. I'm sorry.
Oh no, that's
I,
pretty funny if you ask me.
Yeah, I can't play that here.
Oh man, I thought you were fun, Rick. That was a funny one.
Yeah, no.
But to tell everybody, what's her name? Mophead, who speaks for the president. What's her name?
Yeah, his
the
press
one with
secretary.
the mop. Looks like the Garbage Patch. Yeah, looks like the Garbage Patch Kid.
Yeah,
I forget her name.
It's done like with AI or whatever, right?
It's so important.
LaPierre.
Yeah, she's so important. I don't even know her name.
Yeah, I think that they kind of made her face look like Obama's, right? So, anyway.
Yeah, Obama's face in his voice, and I think Paul. I don't know. Somebody probably posted it up somewhere.
Yeah.
Dragon, I don't know. But yeah, I thought it was pretty funny when I watched it. I went, "Wow, that's pretty funny. That's really funny." For me, anyways. As for Joel Osteen,
yeah,
there's a guy there, Joel Osteen. He's done really well.
Yeah, I don't know much about him, but he's got pretty deep pockets, probably, right?
Huge. He makes Billy Graham's wealth look like a joke. Right?
I'm going to look it up.
People lose there's a fine line between religion and a cult. That's a cult all day long.
He says here that he's estimated to have a net worth of over $50 million, with his church taking in $43 million a year in collections. Heck, man.
Craziness.
That's nothing.
That's money laundering.
That's nothing. Look at the Arrivecan. He's got nothing on Trudeau and the Liberals. They were spending almost $60 million on one app. Come on, Joel. You got to get with the program. Got to get caught up, man.
I hope to see something come out of this, but who knows, right? This guy is like Teflon Don. No different from John Gotti, right? The untouchable. And it's sickening. It's sickening to sit back and see as people are starving in this country and homeless and you name it, right? People are hurting in this country.
Yeah.
But these guys are just scamming it, and the people are just taking it. What are you going to do? I'm just going to keep working. That's all I'm going to do.
I think it's disgusting, man.
Pray for
it's absolutely disgusting.
It is. And then they wonder why there's so much hate for Trudeau. Okay, like you ran it yesterday. All the hate mail that he gets, even restaurants that he goes to eat at. Right, people are boycotting the restaurants and sending death threats, and restaurants are closing down. Right, you wonder why. If that guy came to my restaurant, I'd kick him the fuck out on Facebook Live. I don't want your bullshit in here. I'd go Facebook Live, it would go viral, and I'd probably get a lot more business.
Yeah, well, he's not very popular. That's
right, we don't deal with crooks. We don't deal with crooks unless you're one of my crooks. Right, but you're not, yeah. If I pull even a sliver of the shit that he's pulled, I'd be locked up for 25 years.
Oh.
Just a sliver.
Yeah.
Right now.
Well, just put it in perspective,
it's
right?
Pretty bad.
Like almost 60 million. Yep. Look at that Joel Osteen. He runs that whole operation, filthy rich, huge church, all kinds of, that shows you how, you can see the money there. At least you can see his money. Over here with Arrivecan, it's like, where's the money? It's like the app doesn't even work. It's like empty offices, untraceable cash.
Yeah, the Attorney General saying that there's no accounting.
Yeah, a blatant disregard for accounting. It's like
disregard for, that makes you think. That's just that little piece there.
You try
what don't we know about?
You try a blatant disregard for accounting with your business and see where the Canada Revenue Agency takes you. Right?
Yeah, you're done.
Yeah, you forget to carry the 1 or something, and on your tax form, and see what happens. But
it makes me just want to go into business for myself and just cash. Fuck them, right? You're not going to see another cent tax. What you think I got, you'll never know because it's cash.
I hear you. It's
right.
It's disheartening, and it's terrible for the country because when that kind of stuff is going on, people just lose more and more confidence in the government. And it's not so much the system, it's the corruption, it's the dishonesty, it's the crime, it's the theft, the abuse of the system by these politicians and bureaucrats who have just found a way to milk us.
And you know what? For everybody to sit back and just watch it, especially the NDP, and not say anything about it, we got big problems.
Yeah.
Right? This falls bigger than what you think. The payoffs, the rip-offs, okay, and the cover-ups. And I don't know what to make of it, but you should go to your next caller, sir, before I get out of hand.
All right, Leo. Thank you, sir. I appreciate the call tonight, as always.
Have a good day.
Okay, see ya. Okay, you can call 1-833-975-3733. The old number, the one that actually works. 1-833-975-3733 to join the conversation here tonight.
Join the conversation. Call 1-833-975-3733. That's 1-833-975-FREE. Speak up. Speak out. Make your voice heard. Maverick News. Fighting for freedom by defending your right to free speech. Be a Maverick. Join us.
Feel the vibrations. Our quest continues. The truth is out there. We are Mavericks.
Okay, I'm back, and let's go to our next caller. Who do we have on the line?
Hello?
Hello, welcome to the show. Who's this?
Hey. It's Mike.
Welcome. How are you tonight?
I'm not too bad. But I saw something pretty strange today. In San Francisco, a mob of people surrounded one of these driverless cars, vandalized it, and set it on fire. How about that?
I did not see that. And was there a reason why they did this that you know of?
I didn't hear of a reason. They're just calling it mob violence at this time right now. That guy on Fox News was just showing it. I saw it a little bit earlier today through X or Twitter, whatever, and somebody had it on. It was quite interesting. I'm stuck here in southern Manitoba, and I'm telling you, southern area of Manitoba is starting to get a little bit on the angry side, mean. Some guy went and murdered a woman with killed.
Well, here's the video you were speaking of. This is a Google Waymo autonomous car set on fire in San Francisco. Here's the video.
Yeah, that's it. Well, there's a few videos of it.
That shit is lit.
It's pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. But you know, checking out the news in Winnipeg here, the standoff between people with guns and the police the other day, I think it was 3 police officers got shot. Not dead, but, you know, wounded.
Just watch it.
Then, yeah, it's hard to hear you with the background noise.
The audio is up there, and you're referring to this incident in Winnipeg. And when was this shooting in Winnipeg?
Well, okay, in the last 2 weeks, yeah, we'll go 2 weeks. First, there was a guy in a downtown hotel. He held a woman hostage, and it took a lot of armed police officers to rescue her. Then, about a week after that, there was another guy
just to add
holding.
to that, there was 3 officers with the Winnipeg Police Service were shot Saturday.
Yes.
Shot, and there
Yeah.
was an armed incident.
Yeah.
In the North End, happened around 3:10 in the morning.
Yeah.
200 block of College Avenue. Is this the incident?
Yeah.
I have the release on it here. And,
That's the second incident. I lived in that area pretty much most of my life.
Yeah,
that area is really getting nasty.
2 men in their 40s taken into custody, and the major crimes and homicide units are investigating.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Then there was an incident in Carmen, Manitoba, which is about an hour west or an hour and a half west of Winnipeg. They arrested some guy. He killed a woman, 3 kids. I think a total of 5 people that he murdered.
Yes.
Whoa, like, and the stabbings in Winnipeg, it's like, whoa. Like, what? Okay, I understand people get angry and stuff, but now they get angry and there's no remorse. Like, if they got a weapon, run.
Yeah, 29-year-old Manitoba man charged with 5 counts now, first-degree murder. I was following the story earlier in today, and I know that those charges were delayed or whatever. Not a lot of information at first, but we're getting more about it now. 5 counts of first-degree murder, and these are members of his family, including his 3 children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just tragic. Like, when I first heard it, I almost had a teardrop out of my eye. It's like the saddest thing. I don't get it. Personally, myself, I'm thinking it's the drugs.
I don't know. There's something going on out there, man.
Something.
It's
like Winnipeg's not that big of a compared to like something like Toronto or Montreal. We don't have that type of a population like throughout Manitoba.
It looks like there may have been a
But our
domestic
crime
dispute
is-
aspect to this, and a relationship issue, because this woman, 30 years old, one of the victims, there was a hit and run, and so a 30-year-old woman who was living common law with the guy who was charged was found dead on the highway. So. I don't know. And then, of course, the kids killed as well.
Like that is a total mental breakdown. If you ever heard one, like I could never imagine. I can utter threats or something, but at the end of the day, to think like, wow.
Because 3 of these,
you actually
the 3
went
kids
out
were
and did something
three
like
kids
that? I could never live with them.
were killed inside. They were killed in a fire inside a car.
Yeah, someone else tried to rescue the kids from the car, but didn't. Unfortunately, the children surpassed, and oh, geez, it's heartbreaking. It's a lot of. I hate saying it, but when you bring in a whole bunch of people that don't have a future, and they've been lied to that, oh, things are going to be great here, we'll help you out and everything. Then they get here and they go, what the hell? Like, when do I get a roof over my head? Like, so people are starting to get angry, and other people are going like, we give all this money and all this money, but nothing ever gets done. I think there's got to be some serious auditing done to everybody in government.
Yeah. Well,
like the
listen,
corruption is beyond.
Yeah.
But Rick, I'll let you go.
Thank you, Mike.
I'll let some other callers have their time, and
Excellent.
maybe they got something decent to say. Have a good evening, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate the call, and we'll move on here now.
Hello?
Go ahead, John. How are you tonight?
You clear as a bell. Clear as a bell.
Good. What's up?
Rough day doing my books. What do you call it? Income tax.
Oh. Yeah. Well,
burnt out. I'm burnt out. I haven't worked so hard in a long time.
Yeah. Well, unlike the Prime Minister and the Liberals, you better get your mathematics right, and you better have your accounting down. So don't forget to carry your one and get it right, or else.
Oh, I had a big run-in with the government today. They were passing me around all over the place because they want you to do everything online now. They don't want to send you anything else in the mail. They want you to do everything online. And I told them, I don't do nothing online. No banking, no nothing. No nothing. I said I pay cash for everything. I says I hate computers. I hate remembering passcodes and everything. I said I just don't want to deal with it. I said I've been burnt so many times, ripped off. And I says, listen, I'm not going to file HST anymore. You can send me to the gallows. And she starts laughing. No, we're not going to send you to the gallows. I says, I don't give a crap. I said, I want everything in the mail so I can just fill it out and send it back like normal. Yeah. Anyways. Unfortunately, that's the way it's going now.
That's the way she's going.
Everything's going to be done online.
Yes, sir.
I don't do nothing. I don't pay my bills online. I don't do nothing online. I just watch your show. And I'm watching this idiot here, Ice Cold Ice Spice. Ever heard of her? Ice Spice?
Spice? No.
Slammed for satanic symbol.
Oh, at the Super Bowl, yes, with Taylor Swift.
Swift?
Yep.
I'm looking at her right now. She's in the U.S. Sun newspaper. Oh my God!
I saw that.
Yeah.
Do you think that's what it was? Was it a satanic reference?
Oh, I'm looking at it. It is.
Yeah.
It is. I'm looking at it right now. Big logo on her shirt. Yeah. Or whatever she's got there. That one next to those people are all warped. I didn't enjoy the Super Bowl. It didn't. No? I lost a lot of money too. I made money, but I lost a lot more than I made. Put it that way.
Uh-oh. So you were betting on the 49ers, were you?
Well, I did, but I kind of figured out that Kansas City is all woke. They're Mahone, he's like a god, They want him to break all Brady's records. They don't like Tom Brady because he golfs with Trump, So they hate him. They talk bad about Tom Brady, But Mahone, oh man, he's the best, He's never. They've never seen a quarterback like Tom, whatever it is, Mahone. He walks funny. You ever seen him walk? He walks funny. He walks funny. Oh well.
Here, let's run this video of. Is this their name? Ice Spice. I saw that. You know what struck me was the It looks like a cross.
Yeah, that's the one
and
there.
a necklace. That I found instantly disturbing. It's like, to me, it looks like an upside down cross maybe, or a crucifix of some kind. But she doesn't look very Catholic to me. Here we go. Here, let me just. How do you feel about that, John?
Yeah. See those? See the
Yeah.
they're a bunch of idiots. They're. You see, Swifter. Every time she smiles, she looks like a blow-up doll. Oh, mouth wide open. You know, I don't. They're not gonna get married.
No, I don't think so.
Him and that other.
They'll be broken up.
And if they did, it wouldn't last.
Yeah. It's a
Yeah.
celebrity marriage.
Won't last.
Even if it is real, though.
$7 million. The commercials were going for $7 million for 30 seconds.
Oh, really?
The commercials.
$7 million.
Yeah.
Holy.
$7 million.
And then there's that. Now, did they run that RFK Jr. ad on the Super Bowl where it's like the old Kennedy ad, or was that just something that was released yesterday? Was that did they run that on the Super Bowl? Did you see it? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I didn't see it. No.
See if I can find it for folks here.
The best one was Arnold Schwarzenegger. That one there. That was the best commercial.
Yeah, here's the 19. Here it is. Here, they took this old 1960 ad for John F. Kennedy, president, and they recycled it with. Oh man, how do I find my tab here? They recycled this old commercial and put RFK Jr.'s images into this old ad. Here it is here. Let me just take this out and we'll put this up. Yeah, I think that's it there. There it is. We'll enlarge this. Let's run this for folks.
Do you want a man for president who's seasoned through and through? A man who's old enough to know and young enough to do? Well, it's up to you, it's up to you. It's strictly up to you.
American Value 2024 is responsible for the content of this advertisement.
So now they owe us $7 million for running their Super Bowl ad.
Yeah. $7 million, man.
How do you feel about that ad?
I don't know, man. I couldn't follow it too much, but I see John Kennedy Kennedy there. Yeah. I didn't follow it too much. I can't. Sounds funny. Hey, I don't know. They played this ad? I didn't see it.
Apparently they did.
Yeah. Oh, well,
I don't
sick
know.
and tired. I'm glad it's over. I'm glad now I'm into hockey. I make money on hockey. There's in the Sun there, I was reading Drake. He won $2 million at the Super Bowl, and he says he's gonna donate it to one of the fans. Anybody wants? I don't know what you got to do for it, but it's in the Sun newspaper. Go make yourself $2 million.
Whoa.
Oh, there's a good tomorrow night. Coast to Coast has got a lot of good shows tonight. I'm gonna have to set my alarm for 1 o'clock so I can record it. But tonight's about the heart. Tomorrow's really good. It's the guy's really good. He's a Dr. Walsh, and it's natural remedies. Anybody who's got ailments, you can call in tomorrow, Dr. Walsh. The guy's very good, and you any ache and pains, he'll give you the remedy how to get rid of it naturally without taking any drugs. Yeah, he's good. I listen to the guy a lot. He's been on there. He's on there once a month. Put it that way. So
well, maybe I should tune in because I've got a few aches and pains.
yeah, that's tomorrow night. Tonight is the heart and health, and tomorrow night is the natural remedies, and Wednesday is power of gratitude, whatever that means. And Thursday I'm going to record it, economic and debt. I want to hear about that. That's the economy. They got some pretty good guys on there with the economy, but they're always wrong.
Yeah.
They always say big crash coming next month.
Yeah.
It never happens. I go, wait, where is this big crash? They say, oh, I forget that name. It's a Jewish name. Every 4 years, you get a big downfall of the stock market. You know, it's coming. Well, he is right in a way. They do have a.
It's always
I forget what
coming. It's
called.
just you don't know when. there's always going
You
to
don't
be
know
another
when,
crash.
yeah.
You just don't know when. But anyway, John,
Don't
it's,
know
it's just about to the top of the hour here, so
Good night.
we should probably wrap it up for the night. And
Yep.
I appreciate you calling in as always. It's always a pleasure, sir. And
Yeah, you should be getting something in the mail this week, by the way.
Oh,
Okay.
thank you, sir. I really appreciate the
You
support.
you got that fake 20 last week?
No, I still haven't seen it, but I don't go to the mailbox.
Okay.
My wife goes to the mailbox, so I have to wait for her to go round up the mail. So, because it doesn't come right to the house. We've got one of those super box community box center things.
Well,
so
it's good. You can play games on people. You know, people go for it. It looks like the real thing.
okay. Well, I'll look forward to it. When I get it.
All right, man.
I'll show everybody what it looks like. Take care, my friend. See ya.
Okay, bye.
Okay, that's John, and let's just wrap that up there. And the old phone system working properly, so that's a good thing. Pull that down over there, and you guys can support the show, as always, by donating at maverickdonations.com, or you can also donate at freedomreporters.com. Now, I do have still these shirts and hoodies and t-shirts. So for $60 or more in a donation, I'll send you one of these shirts or a hoodie. In fact, I'm getting... we've got the Exile of the Knights of Malta or the Maverick News hoodies available. And for a donation of $30 or more, I can send you a t-shirt. If you'd like one, just let me know what size you need when you make the donation, or just message me, and I'll get you all set up at freedomreporters.com. Now, you can also donate through the Rumble Rants. It works like the Super Chat over on Facebook, or on YouTube rather, but we're demonetized there, so they don't let us use that. And we're not monetized over there, so it's just you guys supporting us, really. That's it. That's the only source of revenue we have here to cover the bills. And that's that phone system. It chews up a bit of the budget here. There are a bunch of subscriptions we need just to make that whole system work. And I'm trying to do it as cost effectively as possible, but we need your support regardless in order to fund this whole operation. So thank you, everybody, for the support that you have provided. Without you guys, there would be no show. Simple as that. And it's not an easy thing to fund these, because we don't get $100 million from the federal government in subsidies. We get a great big zero. But we still carry on. And I will carry on tomorrow night right here. Same bat time, same bat channel, the Maverick News Channel, where we have the antivirus programs for your mind. Love you guys. Catch you tomorrow night, 6 p.m. on the flip side.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.